Urban Theatre Project. Can you tell us a bit about your company? Yes.
So Urban Theatre Projects has been in existence for almost 40 years. For a lot of that time we've been based in Western Sydney, which means that we're not in the heart of the city, we're in the suburbs. So we're very much connected with people's homes, grocery shopping, everyday life, where the company is situated. And we're best known for making site-specific work. So telling real-life stories, site-specifically. Not necessarily documentary theatre all the time, as you would refer to it, but it's finding stories that are reflecting contemporary Australia. So, stories of what it might mean to be a migrant and call this place home, what it might be to be a young man, of colour growing up, is from teenager to manhood in a challenging home environment. What it might be to tell an intergenerational story of a Lebanese Muslim family from the city to the western suburbs. So we're always looking for interesting stories that reflect contemporary, multicultural Australia. And increasingly we're doing different things, not only site-specific work, but we're doing screen-based work. So actually doing documentary, screen documentary, which has been very exciting. So we look for voices that and stories that maybe aren't already being told. We look to cast actors who you don't necessarily see on the stage. So we try and have show a different perspective of life in Australia, really.
As I said, we are not familiar with the Australian theatre. Can you put us in a little bit in the context? So what's the position of Urban Theatre Project in Australia, in Sydney? So what's so special about Urban Theatre Project?
A company like Urban Theatre Projects, where we sit in the broader landscape or ecology of Sydney, is we're always making new work, like from the very beginning. So we go, okay, what's the idea? What's the best way to tell that idea? Is it through, staging the work in a backyard? Is it staging the work in a theatre? Is it making it be an audio piece, a documentary audio piece? Is it engaging a playwright to write a play? So from the very beginning, we're already thinking about what shape or what form the work might take. Other theatre companies in Sydney find a play, and it's about the interpretation of that play. So it's a model that often it will be the director's vision, whereas at Urban Theatre Projects, it's very collaborative. So we're devising the work together. The director, the designers, lighting designer, the actors, the performers, we're in the room together to create what the story will be. There's not very many companies in Australia that do devised work with actors, site-specifically, that's professional. Also, the company is very well known for not only having a conversation with our own industry, but having conversation with the wider community. And that community might be culturally diverse, socially diverse, geographically diverse, but it's having authentic voices sit alongside what the creative process might be to have a real authenticity to the final work. And there's not a lot of people that do that either in Australia, because it's very resource intensive. You have to talk to community. You are also making a brand new work. You have to then cast the work with actors, performers. So you're building everything from the ground up. And that takes a couple of years really to do. For one of our shows is a couple of years. Whereas other companies, they're subscriber based, they might do 6 shows a year. Audiences can go and buy 6 shows a year to that theatre. For Urban Theatre Projects, you've got to watch, your inbox for the email to say, and there's another Urban Theatre Project show happening, or Urban Theatre Projects experience. And that might be twice a year, once a year. It might be large scale, it might be small scale, but it's not regular.
So maybe we use an example. to say like this white here right now festival you just devised in November.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a bit about how you conceive and how you did the whole thing?
Yeah. Well, so right here, right now, it builds on a body of work that's very much connected to place, to place and the stories of that place and the people of that place. So 2 years ago, so we're now December 2018. So back in 2016, we invited a small group of artists, 6 artists, to be in residence in this suburb, which is called Blacktown, with no idea. Just come and just spend 2 weeks in residence in Blacktown. Talk to people in Blacktown, walk the streets of Blacktown, see what kind of is there of this place. And so then we reconvene and we talk to the artists, and then, you know, they've got ideas, of course. And so over the next 2 years we work with each of those artists to kind of create a new work. And that's things like, there was a trampoline work where it was 2 visual artists, textile artists, who went and found old trampoline frames. So, you know, trampolines, you jump on them, yeah. And then they got a whole lot of materials from Blacktown and they started to weave the trampoline mats on the trampoline frames. And they did this with community. And they did it at a high school and they did it with the local community members as well. And then what happens is you have kind of part installation. So it's these trampolines that are beautiful pieces. I think there was about 7 or 8 trampolines in total. And then the next layer on top of that is we worked with a choreographer to choreograph a dance routine on those trampolines. So for the local community, when they come back and they see, you know, what are these crazy artists kind of doing, weaving these trampoline mats, they actually see the trampoline mats in a site, looking beautiful, with all these people kind of taking photos and feeling them and touching them and loving them, and everything's come from this place. But then they see them activated by these dancers, and it becomes very fun, very funny, very alive, you know. But speaks to that place, speaks, I guess, to suburban Australia. Or something like Rosalind Ode's work, who I think you've met Rosalind. She set up a phone line for a year, which people could ring from midnight to 6 a.m. and leave a message. And she collected all those messages, and then with a small group of young people, Brains Trust, they built a work together called the Nightline, which then we took over a vacated Chinese restaurant, and that became the venue for the work. And it was a surround sound audio work, very powerful, beautiful, but, you know, kind of about insomniacs, you know, but insomniacs who were connected to this place of Blacktown. So we put all this together, all of these works, and then we invite the audience to come, and then we take them on an experience over 4 hours. So they come into Blacktown, they meet an Aboriginal elder, which is very important, and that elder tells a story and connects all of the audience on the night with his story, and also something called a smoking ceremony. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, or if anyone else has told you in Australia of what that is.
No.
No? Well, so, I mean, Australia's colonised, which you know, yeah. So we're all visitors here, and we have a lot of work to do in order to kind of get much greater acknowledgement and respect for the traditional custodians of the country, of this land. So one of the things that's very important to the work that Urban Theatre Projects does is we always have an elder engaged in the project, an Aboriginal elder. But we can do something called a smoking ceremony. And smoking ceremonies are used for a lot of different things, but one of the things, as I've been taught, is that it connects people. So whatever's happened before, it doesn't matter, but we're all here in this moment, and as the smoke weaves through the audience, we're all connected on that journey for the night.
That's in fact a very beautiful moment for me.
It's very beautiful. Yeah.
I did come to the festival.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, did you? I thought you said you didn't.
But 2 weeks ago I just came for 4 days.
Okay.
Just for this festival.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so you know this. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, Uncle.
But anyway, the audience don't know. So
no,
it's good.
but
I think that moment is really It's really with the smell. I can smell
everything.
That moment is really really transformative. I would say.
Yeah, it is, and I'm very superstitious that that we have to do it. Like we have to do it because on that night that audience gets connected through that smoke, and that holds the whole night together for me. So yeah, then the audience then moved through the streets. It's a really different experience of place because there's shop owners, there's cars, there's the end of the day. Not everything's always going to run to plan. But then you're in and out of all these different environments or locations, places, seeing work. And you don't get to choose. This is the thing as well. Like I think there's other festivals where maybe you go, I want to see that work, and that work. What I'm really interested in is multiple perspectives making up one really big work. So coming and seeing the nightline on its own, okay, you take away something just with that piece. Lots to think about in that location. But having the nightline after hearing Uncle Wes, after seeing the trampolines, after having dinner with people, it becomes a different experience for an audience because at the end of the night, I think you take away multiple perspectives of place and a richer and deeper connection to that place, and also a different understanding of each of the works, because it's impossible to think of any of the works in isolation then.
Yes.
And so I'm very much about creating curated experiences of scale for people that still feel intimate enough that the audience feels taken care of. Because there's enough festivals around the world that are for thousands of people.
Yes.
But actually we can be instantly connected to thousands of people through our phones now. Real kind of exchange though happens when you might be in a group of 30 or 40 people, and depending on right here right now, depending on who your host is on the night, also has an effect on how you're kind of looked after. So I really love making things that feel very generous, because that's just important actually, for art experiences to feel like an act of generosity. And when you come in, I want the audience to feel looked after, that we've thought of you and we care about you, and you're going to now make what we've been making real. Because actually it becomes right here, right now, only with an audience. Otherwise we're just rehearsing. So that audience is really important. And I think typically people feel looked after when they come to a UTP show. They say that, we can tell you've thought about us. So I like that.
So the theatre company has existed for more than 40 years. And how long have you been with this company?
I've been here just under 6 years.
Okay. So is there anything you have brought into this company after you become taking in charge of the company? Is there anything you have brought into the company?
The core of what we do, like our heart, what keeps the company beating, that will never change, which is very strong connection to kind of grassroots community, but elevating that to a very high standard in terms of what its finished product is. But what I've brought in are things like this, right here, right now. There's another big project we did called Home Country, which was a show again that took place over 3.5 hours in a multi-level car park. An audience has moved through level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. That was for 300 people a night, sold out, was great. three different stories. Again, not a single perspective, but three interweaving stories that were told over the 3.5 hours. I would say what I've brought in is a multiplicity of perspectives to the work. We still work site specifically. We still work with professional actors, but it's quite rare, I would say now, for the company to do a work that's a director with a cast. You know, it's much more about these works of scale, these experiences of scale, I guess. Bankstown Live closed down a suburban street. So that was something very similar to Right Here, Right Now. And we closed an entire street, and we door knocked all the local residents on that street, and some of them said, yes, you can use my house as the venue, as a theatre. So then we staged the work in people's backyards. And some backyards, people were like crammed in like this, you know, because that was the show you had to see. And queues all the way down the street to get into that show. And the local resident whose house it was, you know, I mean, they're feeling pretty good because like their house is the hot ticket, you know what I mean, in town.
Yes.
And their house becomes the stage. You know, it's the entire set design. So it's this way of working is very personal. You know, the community gets to know you and you get to know the community. The photos that were on the table when you came in, so that's that project is high stakes at the moment, is what I've kind of said to the team, because it's a 4-year partnership with that community. And people call that community, it's a place called Shorewell Park, the Bronx of Burnie. So, you know, thinking it's a bit rough. I don't think it's rough though, but that's the perception in the area. So we're doing something in March with that community. But they don't know us from bar of soap. You know, they just don't, what do you do? So we're in the dating phase, blind date, you know. I show them what we'll do, they give a bit of what they'll do, but we're building it together and getting to know each other along the way. But we can't let that community down in March, because we're going to be, you know, still working with them until 2021. So everything is very important in this first 3 months of this process artistically. Because if we go back on our word or anything, like we have to be very consistent in what we do. So they're like, oh yeah, okay, we trust you. We trust you. We trust you with our story. We trust that you're not going to misrepresent us. And that's a big responsibility. Yes, definitely. You know,
I experience it a lot when I do a documentary theatre work.
Yeah, you know it, and that's not everyone wants to work like that. But, and you would know this, it's extremely rewarding. Because you learn a lot about yourself in the process by what people share of themselves with you to make a work. And this making work in this way, I think, shows the absolute best of humanity. It shows our kindness, it shows us our respect, it shows our generosity and our love for each other, you know. Because otherwise it wouldn't happen. People would just say no. But the fact that people say yes, yes, I'll be in that photo. Yes, you can come to my house. Yes, we'll have dinner with strangers. These are all big things. You know?
So then to have that, to build up that trust with people, with the real people is the thing. You think that's when we do community work, you think this is the first thing we must take care of, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. Are there any other, after working in so many projects and for 6 years, are there any other tips you think if we want to engage a community or do performing arts with a community, are there any tips you think you can share with us?
I think, and you would know this as well, Faye, like people say yes to you. They don't say yes to Ricky or to Kiki, they say yes to you, right?
Yes.
So you can never delegate that because, is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. I always make sure people have my phone number to be able to talk to the director or the curator, and that's fine because the community or the people who are sharing their story are the most important people in the process, really. So no, trust, and then it's consistency. You know, do what you say you're going to do, and if it changes, just talk about that. Be really clear that it's changed because of these reasons. I mean, I just think you have to, you know, it's like any process. You have to bring people along with you on the entire journey, and you have to keep them engaged in what the vision is. You know, and because sometimes at the very beginning of a project you don't know how much money you've got, so you have to. You have to bring people along and be honest with them. It comes back to trust. You know, the big thing is just and respect, actually. And equality. You know, so. And the other thing is, and this is a fine line, and I never really know. I still haven't worked it out after all these years. I've been doing this for a long time now. I would say, like. Well, I'm 44, like since my 20s, digging around in this kind of, you know, space. But I'm still never sure of when and how to talk about myself personally as Rosie Dennis in the process. Because the community or the people that I'm working with, they always know it's a job for me. They understand that this is my job. But because they share so much of their personal with me, it can't always be about work in this role. You know, at some point you've got to be able to share some of your life with them as well, so the playing field is level. But it's not ever to become a friend. So the other tip I give people actually is almost from the moment I meet people on a project, I'm breaking up with them. Because that's responsible. Because I'm not going to be their friend at the end. I can't be their friend. You know, like there's too many people. But we can have a great time together making this. And we'll all fall in love a little bit with each other along the way. But my responsibility to manage the process is to start breaking up with them as soon as we've met.
Yeah, so as not to give them false expectation.
No, yeah. So when it's all over, to start talking about the end before we've even started. You know. Because life goes back to normal, goes back to what it was, but it'll always be a little bit different. Especially working site specifically, some of these places will, you know, they'll carry a memory now for the people that were there for a long time. You know, because you can't take that away.
So, is there any difficulty in the process of doing community work in all these years? Is there any particular difficulty that you have faced apart from resources? Of course, it's good to engage the community, but I think it's not something that is easy. That is easy that you can just say knock the door and then people will just say yes. It's not something like that, right? So I think there must be difficulties and problems. Is there anything you can share, recurring problems and along the way?
I mean, they're mainly questions that I challenge myself on. You know, like it's always the why, but I think any artist does that. You've constantly got to come back to the reason of why you're doing what you're doing. And I think if you're clear on your intention of why you're there or why you've been invited to be there, then there's not so many problems. I mean, the challenges, to be honest, are more around logistics. You know, like a few years ago, we were doing something. It's this Bankstown Live as part of Sydney Festival, and we were due to go up. And 2 weeks before we were about to open, one of our sites, the home that we were doing an entire show in, the mother and father had agreed, they were a bit older, and then their son came over for Christmas. And they were really excited, and they showed the son the flyer and this and that and the other. And at that week, the project happened to have a full-page photo on the local paper, front page. And it was of an Aboriginal man, was the photo. And the son had a particular perspective on Aboriginal people. And he rang me and he said, the house is no longer available. So we have marketing, we have all the artists who've been rehearsing at that, like all of this logistic stuff. So, and that person was on the street. So that's a challenge, right? Because logistically the team have got to then shift, because we need to then go find another venue pretty quickly, right? But also you've got some angry people who are part of the community of where you've been working the last year.
Yes.
And it's not, they don't live there, it's their extended family. And then you sort of go, well, are they going to cause trouble? You know, because there's going to be a lot of different cultures as part of this experience. Yeah. So I'd say it's things like that, really. Or, you know, sometimes partners can be tricky. But I think we're old enough and wise enough now that we're pretty picky with our, you know, we partner with people who we know, and we partner with people who know us very well, because I think it's tricky if you have a partner that wants to get in the way of the art making, you know, or have a partner that doesn't understand process. And you would know as a director, you have to trust process.
Yes.
You have to trust the process, and you've done the process so many times. You trust the process. There's always going to be this period of time in a process, and there's this period of time in a process, but in a process it gets you to the end, and then you have a work. And if partners don't understand that, and even sometimes if artists don't understand that, then that's a problem. Yeah. So, but that's not so much of a problem anymore, and it comes back to being very transparent about the way urban theatre projects makes work, which is collaborative, you know. So it's always going to be part of something bigger. Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, I lost my questions. So
you said that you need to break up with the, just now you mentioned you need to break up with this. Is it, because when you work with a community, you know, we get so close with them, and sometimes they just want to kind of attach to us. And so how you usually do this? Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Back to him. Oh, look, there's just things in the process. Like at the end of a project, we always do a wrap party. So, you know, a bit like they do in a film shoot, a couple of weeks after the project's finished, everyone gets invited. Like everyone gets invited to the wrap party. And we do food, and we have some speeches, and we have a big thank you and all of that. And so that's pretty good at the people who've moved on already. They don't maybe need to come to the wrap party. But the people who are still feeling really connected, they know it's a time to come and kind of swap numbers or email addresses or say thanks and goodbye and all that kind of stuff. So we always do that. And it's about, I guess it's just little caring, little thoughtful things you do, like making sure everyone's got each other's number and hearing what they want to do. So we worked with a group of 12-year-olds this year, and they really wanted to have a WhatsApp group. And their parents were happy if the company set up the WhatsApp group chat. So we did that. So then they can keep in touch with each other, which by default they keep in touch a little bit with us, but it's not very much. It's there if we want to have a look or engage, but they're still connected. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of answers the question about breaking up.
Yes, I think what you said is good. Just give it Yeah, give it an obvious ending to it. I think is a good gesture to remind people that is the end of the journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember my question I want to ask is, you said that when you came, you sort of lifted up to a professional level. I really don't know about the situation in Australia, but in Hong Kong, it's still, I think, in some people's mind is that cumulative art is something inferior. I don't know whether it is like this in Australia, and it seems that cumulative art can be something wishy-washy, and but of course I don't think like this. I think cumulative art can be professional, and it must be professionally done, in fact, to be taken care of. And so what's the situation like in Australia, and how if it is like this in Australia, how do you combat this? How do you tackle this myth?
It is like that in Australia. Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's not easy. And I just don't shy away from it. You know, I'm really proud of the work we do. The audience that comes really loves the work. And it's more about talking about the work. I just lost my train of thought, but you know, I talk about the work as more as having an impact, you know, and what's the broader social impact that the work that we make has, because people aren't coming into a black box theatre and watching something. You know, the ripples are much kind of wider. It doesn't mean that main stage theatre directors don't come and look at what we're doing. They do. But it's the added layer for us. Like, we're making it brand new. So it's really difficult to kind of compare the work that we do to compare the work with a main stage theatre company, because it's pretty rare that they're doing something brand new, because they have different KPIs that they have to meet, you know. So they're programming works that are popular, whereas we're making things that are not about being popular or being well known. We're making work that's about a bigger social issue. So the people and audiences who come to our work, they're coming because they care about community, because they want to be part of, you know, a change, a social change, and they want to hear about a bigger social issue that's tackled by an arts company, you know, that's not kind of didactic, that's got a poetry to it. So I don't worry about it. I used to, when I first came to Urban Theatre Projects, I was like, right, yeah, like community, okay, you know, how do we rebrand what that is? How do we reframe it? And then I went, actually, you know what? Let's just claim it and bring more people along with us, because I feel like people politically are so feeling disempowered at the moment in Australia, that it's exactly the work of Urban Theatre Projects that lets people come together and see something that feels like, yes, we can change. It is a hope-filled future, and I'm with like-minded people, and we can do this together. And that's community, you know. So I just claim it now, and I don't worry if people think that our work is this or this. We need it all, you know, we need it all. We have a bunch of great actors who perform with us and who also perform on the main stage. So there's no issue with actors going, oh no, we're not going to go work with Urban Theatre Projects because it's community. It's not thought of like that, because we treat them with the same, it's the same, you know, they're engaged as an actor in a role to do a job. Yeah. So, yeah.
And well, the very last question is, because as I introduced my theatre company, I said our vision and mission is we are based in theatre, but we want to look at the society. At least, I'm not saying that we can make change, but we want to start the conversation of the changes. But sometimes we are faced with the questions that, well, theatre, the best you can do is preaching to the converted. And but it seems that of course, it's not your belief. So, what do you think about the impact of theatre? I think your theatre is only one of the strategy you use in your company, but in general, in performing arts or theatrical arts, what is the value of performing arts or theatrical arts in social change?
Look, I think it's a really great question, and I don't have an eloquent answer for it. I mean, I think the value of it is that if it is like-minded people, and if it is, as you say, it's preaching to the converted, then it's about all of us coming together. And I think there's great value in people coming together. There's a great value in talking and sharing a live experience together. And I think that will become more and more precious the further we kind of latch on to technology and kind of a singular experience with a screen, or a singular experience that's connected over multiple locations, but it's still singular. So I don't know. It's not any one thing, you know, but I think if theatre didn't exist, if there wasn't a platform to be telling story, then I think we'd be at a great loss, because watching a story on a screen and watching a story be told in real time with the sound of the world around you and the smell of the world and real life filtering in, like site-based work I'm talking about, it might not have a big impact or a big change coming out of that, but it reminds you of where we are. And that can be a good and a bad thing, you know. But you take it away and reflect.